Help me, ducks. How we doing? Hope everybody's having a fab day. I've got my buttermint tea. Oh, so good. Let's do the hellos first and foremost. Wow, so many people in and chatting. Cheryl was the first one in. Yeah, she's off to see Godzilla and Kong with her daughter at the cinema tonight. So, yeah, Cheryl was the person, obviously, or if you don't know, was the one that was here last week, who I did the live with from Oneness Emporium. Talking of cinema, I really want to see the Devil Late Night with the Devil, is it called? Based on the 1977 show. It's only showing tomorrow night in Nottingham. One showing at 8:30 on school night at an indie art house type theatre, but I really want to go to the pictures. Not been to the pictures in years. I have. I went to see Wonka just before Christmas, but before that, years. Angie's here and Majus. Nice to see you. Thank you for your kind words as always. Celia, Marilyn, Brian's here. He's exhausted. I am exhausted as well. Oh, what a day. Becca, Becca's here. How are you? Trinity Rain. We've got Celia and Lily Rose, Sarah, Barbara, Javi. Our Sandra's here. Hi, Sandra. Nikki Sparkle. Gosh, how the devil are you? I've not seen you in ages, years. Hope you're keeping all right. Rob's here. Nice to see you, Rob. Hypnopol. Not seen you before. Golden here with a different username. Right. That's why. Rachel's here. And Marilyn, Taylor, Kate, Rolf, Saskia. We have Patsy. Hi, Patsy. And Mia, Tamaya, Petra, Thace is here. And our Chris. Hello, Chris. The lovely Anne is here. Nice to see you, Anne. And Carol and Trisha, Tycon, Luce Karma, Suzanne. Haha, true. I thought I'd join a live chat today, and you're the only one I know that still keeps it up. No comments, Chris. Before I could hear the cogs of your brain going then. Esco, hello, nice to see you. So yes, welcome everybody. Have you all got a cuppa? I've had a day and a half. So after the live last Saturday with Cheryl, I put I'd got my washing machine on pause because I don't like obviously having the washer on in the background. It can be quite distracting. So I had it on pause. I finished with my live, started to do my dinner, put the pause on, came and sat down, I was eating my dinner, and then there was this almighty screeching sound, and the washing machine was like, and I thought, oh my gosh, the neighbours are gonna bang on the walls or come round. It was really deafening. Anyway, thankfully it was on the final spin. So long story short, washing machine kaput. So Sunday morning I went and bought a new washing machine. Now you have to pay to have it delivered. You have to have it paid to be installed. You have to pay extra to have them take the old one away. Well, anyway, needed to be done. So they said, when do you want it delivering? I work in the week. So I said, Saturday, please. Was told any time between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Have a guess what time they came? 5 to 5. 5 minutes before. I mean, they did ring about 40 minutes, but about 4:15 to say we're on our way. Will be about 40 minutes. So I was like, oh. Anyway, it's done. So you might hear a noise when there's a spin, but obviously I've got laundry built up from last Saturday. So there's a wash on. But that wasn't the worst part. Last night they sent a text saying, just to confirm, we're coming tomorrow, but you need to make sure the hallways are clear and under your sink. Well, Sandra and Becca in the chat, and anybody else that might be in the chat who's been here, can envision what my hallway looks like. I've got bookcase after bookcase after bookcase, four bookcases full of stuff, with stuff on top of them as well. So I had to get up at 6 a.m. this morning, and I mean, good job they didn't come at 7 because I wouldn't have been ready, put it that way. But I'm exhausted, but good exercise. But loads of stuff's been cleared out. So, but anyway, that's why my day's been tiring. Then the rest of it, I've just been able to kind of sit and wait. My passport arrived. So I've got a passport again for the first time in 17 years since it expired. Would that be right? If it expired in 2007, so that's 17 years ago in my maths. Yes. Yeah, 17 years since it expired, which means it's 27 years since I last got a passport. Boy, it's changed, but it was so easy doing it online. So that's that bit sorted. And I could have gone out this morning and walked the dogs with my friend, but I was like, I've got to sit here. My passport needs signing for, and the washing machine coming. So I can't meet you at 6 a.m. I could have done in hindsight, couldn't I? And they pushed the passport straight through the door. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's see what you guys are saying. Where did I get up to? I thought I would join. Oh, yeah, I saw that. That's where I got up to. Nikki's comment. Chris, you filthy beast. What did Chris say? I bet he made a comment, didn't he? I beg your pardon. My innocent mind never even went there. I bet. Notice how he blamed me for his dirty mind. Oh dear. It's a modern story about how modern life is fab. You had a good day, good spring cleaning. Yes, exactly. That's how I've got to look at it, hasn't it? Simon, do you ever declutter your tarot decks, or do you have a special place for your decks? Behind me, I have got a video up. When I hit, I think it was a 700 tarot decks, I had to decant quite a few from this and put it into the spare room. And I did a video which was called something like Decluttering 700 Tarot Decks. It's been very popular. Lots of people have watched it. But because I've now got rid of a lot of stuff from my hallway, one of the bookcases is coming in here on a spare wall. Yes, in this place I have a spare wall. And my oracle decks are going to go on there because they've been in a back room. So I'm going to have tarot behind me here and oracle to the side of me there. And I give away a lot of oracle decks. I'm only going to keep oracle decks that are cool and a little bit different. Yeah. So that's tomorrow's job, and then putting the haul back. I can't be asked to do it tonight after I finish the live. So tomorrow I'll put my bookcases back, put stuff back on them. But anyway. So I haven't decluttered my tarot decks for a while. I'm up to about 850 now, I think. But it's going to have to be done soon, I'm sure. David says passports went up in price £6 a week ago. Yeah, just kind of, it's cheaper to do it online than it is over the post, and it was just so easy, and the service is brilliant because they let you know every step of the way. I did get a text on Tuesday saying your passport application has been paused, and I was like, oh no. And the photo that I'd uploaded, they said wasn't good enough, even though when I did it online and uploaded it, I got a tick to say good. They said no. So either go to a booth or do another one. So I did another one, and that one went through, and they said, yeah, your passport has been accepted. That was on Wednesday, and it's being delivered tomorrow. It's printed now and delivering it tomorrow. But I deferred it to Saturday because I thought I had to be in time for it. Anyway, please do a video of the new movings. when I pluck up the courage to do it again, I will. Are you traveling abroad anytime soon, Simon? Or just had to get a new passport due today? My plan is to go to New York later in the year. So yes, that's what I needed the passport for, and I'm very excited, very excited. So what else was I going to say before we start the topic of tonight? Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I'm excited as well. I haven't flown for 24 years. 2000 was the last time, and that was to America, over to Salt Lake via Chicago. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think that it's been that long, actually, but life gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it? Okay, so tonight's CC&C is going to be Simon Asks. So I've done a few of these before. If you go to my playlist section, you'll see that I've done 3 or 4 Simon Asks the Community video, and there's usually some questions or a topic that we're discussing. And I usually have, hello, Susan, nice to see you. I usually have invited people on to do it. But what I thought I would do tonight is ask anybody who's present who feels that they want to share their thoughts on the subject to just come on, and I'll invite you in. I can drop a link, and if you feel that you want to share your views or answer any of the prompts, then feel free to do that. And this, I suppose it's going to be a bit like you know, those radio shows. Like over here, we've got a few of them, but the one I listen to the most is LBC, which is Leading Britain's Conversation, and they'll have a topic and people ring in and share their views. So it's a bit like that, but other than damn no makeup on, don't worry. Rather than ringing in, you can come in and join me. But the reason why this discussion is I've decided to ask the question is because I'm not I'm a bit conflicted. So it started with this deck that came in the week, the new deck by John Matthews, which is The Fool's New Journey. And I've been watching interviews with him, and you know, I've been reading the book, which is a gem actually. And he's talking about the fact that, you know, the tarot has been around since the 1400s, the 15th century, and it wasn't a tool for divination. It wasn't even necessarily a game at that point. It was for the aristocracy, the joining of 2 dynasties, and they were depicted, and then, you know, it then went on to over the next 300 years to become a game, which, you know, we know as Taroki. Also in that time, you know, there's been it's evolved into, we've seen, not into, because kind of splintering off, if you like, but like Minchiati, which is a different kind of system that brings in, you know, the faith, hope, and charity cards and zodiac cards, that sort of thing. And then, of course, in more recent times, even though, you know, well over 100 years ago now, at the turn of the 20th century, that's when the esoteric kind of levels were, layers, I should say, were put onto the cards with Arthur Edward Waite, Aleister Crowley, etc. So the occult kind of, even though you can kind of say actually in the 1800s it was kind of starting to be used for occult purposes, but the tarot evolves and it changes, and the world since 2020, as John Matthews was writing, is a very different place. And I just want to kind of start the conversation just by reading, take that bookmark out, that's not where the part I want, it's on page 13. Something that really got me thinking. And he said, he was reading a poem, and of course, you know, he references, oh God, is it Eden Gray, who was the first person to kind of pen the Fool's Journey, as in looking at the tarot as the Fool being us in human form, a soul wearing a physical suit as the body, then making its way through the major arcana, through life, you know, with all those experiences. And he was saying that, you know, the Fool today would perhaps in this world experience life quite differently. And this is kind of articulated better here. So it says, on that particular day, as clouds crossed the sky and light and shadow played across the lawn in our garden, I found myself asking, who said we have to have the same meanings with a few minor details for every tarot deck produced? I had myself devised over 13 of these, and now I felt that something new was required, something that would bring tarot into the present with ideas and concepts of which the originators of the first 15th century decks either had little or no understanding or did not possess the language to explain. And that was why hi Stephanie, that was why I thought that's worth further exploration. Now, just to make my position clear, I'm not here to say the tarot does necessarily need to change. I will always be a traditionalist. My soul deck will always be the Rider-Waite Smith. I will always work with and use traditional tarot. It's more of, you know, is another system, is it needed? Is it wanted? Do people in the community want it? We have different systems anyway, like the Crowley deck, etc. I'm really looking forward to Christophe Ponset's series of books, tarot. Oh, I'm not sure what they are interested in. Okay. I'm not sure what that adds. Simon, have you heard of an Oracle of Heaven and Hell by Travis McHenry? I know the name Travis McHenry. Same. It has angels and demons on the same card, and we'll have your opinion on the function. Okay, no, I've not. I'll look out for that. Although I've heard of Travis McHenry. So the questions, and if you do want to come on, just let me know in capitals, and you're more than welcome to come on and add your voice. Might not, you know, if there's 3 or 4, I might just bring one on at a time, so it's not, you know, lots of people talking over each other and stuff. Or it might be that everybody's really shy or haven't got their makeup on and don't want to come on, and that's fine. It'll just be me talking. So either way helps. Or if you're not confident to come on, please don't let that stop you adding your thoughts into the comments. I think there is a lot to be said about that. Hello, Anna. How are you? Are you aware of the Fool's New Journey Tarot by John Matthews? Right, so let me get the prompts up. So the questions to consider are, so the subject is, the discussion is for Simon Asks, which I'll add this to the playlist with the other Simon Asks the community. Should the tarot evolve? And then points to consider are the archetypes set in stone? And you know, I don't just mean how we've got lots of different tarot decks and they're all depicted in different ways, like some are depicted as dogs, some are depicted as angels or whatever, but are the archetypes set in stone? In today's world, do we need the courts? Because this deck has removed the courts. There's 60 cards in this deck. However, even though it's the Fool's New Journey from, it would be 1 to 59 because there's 60 cards, but the Fool is kept as a 0. There are cards like the Prisoner. So you could think, well, actually, we are bringing in elements of the minors here. This could be the 8 of Swords, the Dreamer, 4 of Swords, the Worker, 8 of Pentacles. Do you see what I mean? So there's still archetypes. All of these cards are archetypes, but there are no courts. And maybe, and I'm only up to there in the book, maybe that's because John Matthews doesn't feel the need in the modern world for courts of kings and queens. I mean, here in the UK and other parts of the world, we're under a monarchy. But a lot of people who even live in a country where there's a monarchy might think that that's outdated. Do we need pages and knights? And a lot of courts are, been replaced with more things like a family unit, like father, mother, son, daughter, etc. But that can be quite gendered, can't it, as well? And then, does any tarot that doesn't conform to the traditional structure automatically make it an oracle? Can I edit that, or do you have to yeah, oh, edit. I can't live with that. Okay, let's pop that. I don't know how I keep it now that I've done it though. Save. Yeah. So comments I'm bound to get, and I said when I did the live, not the live, sorry, when I did the video, we didn't say this on the live last week when we first showed the deck, but on the video I did the full walkthrough. I know I'm going to get comments from people saying to me this is an oracle. I mean, firstly, what I would say in relation to this is the tarot is an oracle, but how else do I word it? You know, if it's not 22 majors, 56 minors, if it doesn't have courts, do we automatically write it off as, oh, that's an oracle, because it's not following the tarot structure? Does the tarot have to have the structure of 22 majors, 56 minors, and contain the courts? So that's the questions. Let's see what we've got. There's so much to write. Do you want to come on, Anna? I'll put the link into the chat if you do want to come on and join me. Absolutely needed. It's a great tool for working out situations where a strong character or significator can take place for other cards to work around. But I do agree, refresh of the court names. Oh, that's in relation to the courts. It might be better if I look at my iPad actually to see some of the comments. I think the current structure of the tarot is what defines it as a tarot. Oh, we've got Becca. We've got Becca here. Oh, let me change. Is what defines it as a tarot. Mic down, Becca. Oh, we've got Becca.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you need to turn the volume down.
All right, bear with. Bear with. Can you hear? Right. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes.
Marvelous. I wasn't expecting to do this, so I haven't even got my what do you call it? My tripod thingy up. Such an interesting topic. As soon as I saw this, I thought, wow, this is going to be something that really gets our minds going. I've got kind of hooked up with the fact that, now how am I going to put this right? Coming from an organized background of religion, there are people that say, you have to believe this, otherwise you're not a real Christian, or you're not a real Buddhist, or you're not a real whatever. So you've got to look back on, man decided what the rules would be as far as the tarot was concerned. And when you think it wasn't even invented as a source of divination, it was a card game. So somebody decided that it was going to become a form of divination, and somebody decided what those card meanings would be. But as tarot has evolved, and it has evolved, we've got all this array of beautiful decks that fit in with everybody's path. There's not a deck out there that doesn't fit somebody like a glove, you know, something that somebody can work with, a tool that somebody can sit down and really connect with. And in my view, if they start off with that deck that you just showed, the one that got 60 cards, and they gel with it and they work with it, would I then say to that person, well, you don't really know the tarot, or you don't really know divination, or it hasn't got the court cards and it's got to have this, you know, and then we kind of gatekeep as far as...
Which, you know, I've had comments in the past where when everybody knows kind of my relationship with the Toth, you know, and it's not a system that I tend to work. I've got a couple of decks, and I've got kind of other decks that follow the tradition of the Toth. But you know, I've had comments where I've been told, well, unless you read the Toth, you're not really reading the tarot. You know, or unless you're applying astrology, you're not really having a full understanding of the tarot. Well, when you look back to those early historical decks, when all that wasn't there, you know, then who is it? Like you started your comment off by saying, you know, it was a system that was invented anyway, you know, and somebody decided, or did they decide, or did it just evolve because it was this deck that was presented to aristocracy, you know, and then it became a game, and then it, you know, people started to, and we find anything to use for divination, don't we? Whether it's patterns in the cloud, or the way we chuck rice down on a surface, or tea leaves. you know, it's a tool like anything else, isn't it?
And I think for me, the foundation of it, yes, we've got the RWS, and yes, it does have a system. And I always think that is a great place to start, is to look at what was created by Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, and appreciate that bit of history and how they laid that out for us to use and follow. But I think even Arthur Waite was into so many different avenues of spirituality. And I think even he would say that, okay, this is the structure that I created, and this is the artwork that Pamela created, but there's room for it to grow and evolve. And I think especially if either of them had a concept of just exactly how much they've given in terms of what they put together, I think that they would be over the moon in the fact that people have branched out and made it fit and work for them in the myriad of different decks that we've got. And every deck you pick up, the guidebook will have the author's interpretation.
And how controversial would it have been at the time when, you know, Pixie illustrated the miners, you know? So okay, lovely. I've got 5 people waiting in the wings, so I'm going to try and restrict it to 2 minutes each. But
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Becca. I really enjoyed your input. Oops,
Okay.
gone sideways on us. See you later.
Okay.
Bye. Anna.
Hi.
Hello. I'm really interested to get your take on this as a tarot creator.
Yeah, I think it's a very controversial topic because there's benefits to both. If you hear my dog, she's here, so she might bark. You know, I think that if it deviates, so when you create, as you're creating, you can come up with like different, you can come up with different ideas. The problem is, if you deviate too much, then there's that little gap where you're going into almost like either a different system or into an oracle, because an oracle deck has that freedom, right, where you can pretty much see what you want, interpret it as you want, versus tarot has the structure. So I think if you compare it to say a dialect in a language, right, you have the main language and different branches of the dialect of that particular language. Like if you go to different areas, there's a different accent, but it's still the same language. But if you deviate so much, like it becomes a different language on itself. Like if you, at one point, it will be something different. So I think that it's good. It's not necessarily bad. You can create a new system. And I think that's something that in the future is inevitable in tarot, because at one point, you know, we're evolving culturally and, you know, individually, we're evolving to a different state than when it was initially created. So you're going to bring something different to it. But there's something to be said about leaving it the way it is, the original one, because it incorporates different, basic things that we have. So I see the court cards as personalities and different stages of life, whether you want to call them page, knight, queen, or king. You can call them boy, man, old woman, whatever. You know, it doesn't really, it's just different stages. So if you're hung up on the specific terminology, I think it's okay to change it as long as the meaning stays the same. But if you remove them altogether from the system, you've created a new system. So you should call it so. You should say, you know, tarot 10, you know, version whatever, you know, or something different, so that people who want to stick to the basic RWS have the option of knowing that it's not RWS. You know, if you change just one name of the card, I think it's not a big deal. Like even if you didn't call them court cards and you called them something else, but you specified in the guidebook, I'm not going to call these knight, you know, king, queen, because I don't feel connected with that particular structure, but I will call them A, B, C, D. That's fine. But removing something altogether from the system, or actually incorporating something that is not in the system, like if you were to add different, like adding versions of a card is fine if you still have the original version. But if you say, for instance, you will add to the 78 cards, you'll say, I'm going to incorporate a card that symbolizes on its own, we'll call it fear, that's separate from the deck, and we'll number that you know, 79. You've created a new system because you've does that make sense?
It does, and I think, you know, we've seen those subtle changes. Well, perhaps not so subtle, but like in history, where the papess became high priestess, the hierophant from pope, but they're still there as that archetype. So one question I really would like your opinion on is, and I think you were just kind of going there anyway, is are the archetypes set in stone? Because what John Matthews has done with this deck is all 22 majors are here, but not in the same order, because there's stages in between. And he feels that the archetypes that in the major arcana would have been around, you know, 600 years ago, might not be the archetypes that are necessarily relevant today, or that we have evolved to need more.
So I think that the archetypes that are in tarot right now, personally, and this is just my opinion, are set in stone for tarot. If there are, and there are additional archetypes now that were not back then, and you would want to add them to, say, a tarot deck, I think that's fine, but it will not be a tarot deck as the original tarot deck. You know, it would have to be called something else. So if I were to say create a deck and include different archetypes that are present in modern life, you know, then I would have to name it something else. Like instead of tarot, I would call it tarot, but say like, you know, modern tarot, or make a point that it's a new system. And then if somebody else wants to create, you know, piggyback on that system and create separate decks like people have done with RWS, then they would branch off from that. So, you know, nowadays you have a lot of technology, for instance, right? If you want to incorporate that archetype where in the deck, which something that did not exist back then, that would be a different, an addition that is not present right there.
So if I'm getting you right on it, what I think you're saying is that it would still be a tarot, but you would have to be clear that it's a different tarot system.
Right. Like I would, because it would have the old tarot, it would still have the old archetypes, right?
Yeah.
So it would still be the tarot, but if you are adding to it, I would call it like something else.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, for instance, you know, there's the British, there's British English, right? Language. And then you have American, which is still English, but it's, you know, based on the English language, it's American. So it would be something similar to that. I'm thinking language because language has branched out so much and it has evolved over, you know, hundreds of years. So you do see that happening, you know, like there's, I think that it would be a progression for tarot to incorporate a more modern aspect to it. Like even like, for instance, you have, like, if we were to take it, you know, the Lover's card, traditionally the Lover's card is male and female. you know, you have a lot of, you know, now the LGBTQ community, if you want to incorporate that, I would say incorporate the lovers, and then you would have additions to that lovers card to expand on that. But that would create different archetypes for the lovers card that is not initially included in the original. It's a progression from the original, but I would name it something different because it adds more to the tarot versus the 78 cards, not just numerically, but it also adds it conceptually. You know, like for the Abyss Tarot, I did a version for 3 of Swords and a version for the 10 of Swords, but it's still the 3 of Swords.
Yeah.
So if I were to create an addition and expand, I could, if I were to number that as a 11 of Swords, add, you know, go from the 10 and add an 11, and then the page, and then the night. So I would add cards in terms of actually creating a separate archetype for that. Then yes, I would do that. I would incorporate that. So I think it would be interesting to see it done. The problem is, in terms of when you add cards to a deck, the price increases.
Yes.
So a lot of artists will not do that because when you're adding cards, if you're independently printing, it adds more money to it weight wise. And I know people don't, you know, so it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when you have to, you know, pocket the money. And it also is a big deal in terms of it could fail, it could flop, right? So not everybody a lot of people say they want it, and then when you actually do it, they don't want it. Nobody wants to spend, like, oh, you know, I want the traditional tarot. I can't, this is too much. I can't, I'll buy it when I learn the original tarot, and then I'll buy, you know what I mean? So it's like a lot of people are afraid to learn new systems, even with the Lenormand. Like Lenormand decks are, it's a new system, but not a lot of people will actually read Lenormand because it's so different.
Absolutely.
So that's my take.
Is it something you've ever considered doing?
I actually have thought about doing something similar, but I would probably like, if I wanted to do that, I would say it would be an oracle based on tarot, like, because it would give me the freedom, you know, because the moment you call it tarot, you get a lot of criticism in the sense, like in that sense that, you know, it's not tarot. So then, you know, the flexibility of calling it an oracle, it would be much easier because I could have all the 78 cards and an additional, and keep the archetypes and add to the archetypes, make it a 60 or 70 card, you know, sorry, an 80 card or 90 card deck, and still have tarot, but it's a blend, and it would be like it would be, I would say probably, I would call it something like a tarot oracle or something like that, you know?
What's your oracle?
Yeah, I would do something like that. But I do think that there's a question of, you know, it for us as creators, you always are in that moment where you want to do it, but then it's like the risks are very high because you are in a way, you know, breaking the old system, the old reading system, which is very effective. You know, there is something to be said about it because it reads so well, and if you add to it, you're always afraid, not necessarily like I'm afraid what people are going to say. No, it's mostly like, is it going to be able, will it be readable? Is it going to be easy? Is it actually going to work as a system, or is it going to really crash it and not function right?
Yeah. And we've seen decks like Dreams of Gaia, which tends to do its own thing. And there was a couple, one of the Heart, and I can't remember what it was called, but that was classed as a tarot oracle. We kind of coined that phrase in the community back then, where there were 60 cards. I've forgotten what they were called now. But it'll be interesting to see how this takes off, you know. And in the interview I watched with John Matthews, with the director from Red Feather, she was saying, I wonder if in a few years' time there'll be other people making versions of this structure.
Right.
You know, in the same way that we've got all the versions of Toth and RWS, etc.
Right. But I think if you don't call it that, a new system, then the chances are slimmer. You know, you would actually, you know, like there's a name, there's Lenormand, there's
definitely
something Oracle, something tarot. You have to come up with a new name.
Yeah.
Because if you call it tarot, it's not gonna, like, there's the or something. Label it as a different system so that people can actually take it, study it, and create versions of it. If you don't have the structure, then it's not gonna be successful, I guess.
Yeah. No. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. We've got a few people waiting in the wings, but I'm gonna take a pause and look at comments. But thank you, Anna, for coming along.
Bye, guys. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Speak to you soon. Okay, so yeah, there's a few other people, but I just want to make sure that we're getting the voice from people in the community as well. So let me go back to where I think I was. That's where I dropped the link in. Okay, so people saying hello to Becca. Simon, I think I'd feel shortchanged if court cards were not included. Maybe a choice could be given to the buyer with or without courts. That's from Lily Rose. I think one great thing, says Robert, about tarot is that it does not have any gatekeeps as such. Yeah, so it has that ability to evolve and to have different systems coming from it without people getting too hung up. Although decks like this, I do feel, divide people. Please comment on Dreams of Gaia. Yeah, I mentioned that by Raven Phelan. She had a deck with new modern terms and titles, and I love that deck. Yes, it isn't for beginners. Yeah, a friend of mine at work in my old jobs came rushing into me one day. She says, I bought a tarot deck. She whipped it out the bag and it was Dreams of Gaia. And I must admit, my first thought was, oh no, because I wanted her to learn the traditional, but she loved it, as with the Chrysalis. Tarot, as is today, is a product of creative evolution, says Forever Whereafter. Stephanie says, when I first created the deck, my worry was that people would view my artistic choices negatively, but there's so many ways to interpret the meanings, and I love to see them all. Nikki says, I think it's very challenging to rearrange the structure in a way that it'll be workable for such a huge majority of people logically, because if it isn't done right, it can be confusing or less inviting for people to use. Okay, I'm just going to look for capitals or tags. Chris says, would you be okay to do a quick refresher of the questions? I will. I'll pop them up. And lovers is attraction on the basic level, doesn't need a new archetype. So that's just referring to one particular card. Could someone remind us of the question? So I'll pop the questions up and then I'll bring in my next guest. So the questions are, in general, should the tarot evolve? Or perhaps that really should be, does the tarot need to evolve for the modern world? Are archetypes set in stone? And then in today's world, do we need the courts? And does any tarot that doesn't conform to the traditional structure automatically make it an oracle? So we've heard Becca's views and we've heard Anna's views just there. And now I'm going to bring in the lovely Susan. All right.
Hello.
How are you, my lovely?
I am great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's lovely to see you again.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
I'll be really brief. I agree with everything that's been said thus far. The only thing I would add to the conversation is that the tarot has already been evolving for a very long period of time. I believe the tarot represents consciousness, and it's going to continue to evolve whether we think it should or not.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. It works.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why it works, because it represents consciousness, and we meet it wherever we're at.
Yeah, and I think what's also really good about that, because as we said, you know, right from it being a game to very simple images and just looking at directions and things like that, and then the Golden Dawn put lots of esoteric levels to it. They're all still there.
Yes.
You know, we have choice.
And
Don't we?
100 years from now, there will be many
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, so you know, it's not like we're saying that a new modern deck is to replace the traditional tarot, because you've still got the Minchiati if you want to work with that system. You've still got the Marseille and the Italian decks,
Yes.
without the overlaying of esoteric.
I
But then
will inject. Excuse me. I will say, as an artist, there are lots of altered artworks. If somebody takes an existing artwork and changes it, it's called altered. In fashion, if somebody takes an existing garment and changes it, it's called altered. If you're going to change the deck, call it an altered deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a simple solution.
John Matthews said when he was the title of The Fool's New Journey came very late in the game. He was at the whole time of writing the book and working with the artist, it was the reset tarot, because that's how he envisaged it, that, you know, we're living in this world, we've come through a world changing event like the pandemic, and he started this, I think he said, in 2021, and we was coming out the other side, and it was a new world, really. You know, there was that shift energetically as well.
Yeah, right. It's his experience, his artistic experience of that, and there's a place for that, and there always should be, and there always will be.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. That was a gem. So thank you for stopping by, Susan. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Mr. Chris.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you. Yes. How are you?
I'm good. It's funny, I was watching everyone who came on before me, and each time someone came onto the screen, they were like surprised, and I was like, why are they surprised? Like they're waiting there, and then I did it as well. So now I'm like, okay, right, fair enough. I get it. When you're not expecting it, it's like your face just appears in front of you because you get like right into it. So you do right into the discussion.
Like, oh wow, that's me.
Yeah. Oh, who's up next? Oh, I know him.
This is fun. I'm enjoying this.
Good.
So what's your thoughts? What have you got to share?
So I'll try and stick to the questions, and I'll try and not be my usual scatterbrain. So I have scribbled down some things. So if you see me looking down, that's why. Does it need to change? Well, first of all, I want to say that I agree with what Becca was touching on, and that I think that we run the risk of being quite gatekeepery if we talk about this in a certain way. So I'm talking about this from my own point of view. This is my own opinion, and I'm never one to say, oh, you know, this should be that. Do you know what I mean? This must be done that way. So this is just my opinion. Does it need to? So the word needs, I would never say anything needs to change, but if I would only say that if I thought it just wasn't working. If the tarot just stopped working because it got so out of touch with reality that it just was never working for anyone anymore, then I would maybe say, right, okay, maybe we need to look at changing this. You know, maybe it is out of touch with reality. It's not working anymore. But are we in that place? No, I really seriously 100% do not think that we are. I think the tarot.
Can we ever be in that place? I was going to say, can we ever be in that place? Can we ever be in a place where the tarot doesn't work? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's always going to.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? The structure of it, the structure of tarot has more or less been the same since it was put together when it was only a playing card deck of cards, when it was only for playing cards or only for a game. it's retained that same kind of a structure right through when it became a system of divination, right up until the modern day. Now, obviously, we have naturally layered our own different understandings into it, and I think Vincent Battisti's done a really good book about where he looks at it and he compares the tarot. Definitely, like you look at the little white. See, anyone who's got like an old like 70s or 60s tarot deck, look, compare your little white books from back then to your little white books that we get maybe a couple of decades later to the ones we get now. It's such an interesting exercise to see how our use of the tarot has changed over time. So from that point of view, it totally naturally has evolved how we've used it, but the structure of it has stayed the same. So I think that how we use the thing will change, but I don't think the thing itself has to change. I think that is to do with. I mean, the magic of tarot has always been, well, in my opinion, has always been with us. It's a pack of cards, and
Yeah.
no disrespect to anyone who has a different view on that. But I've never thought that the magic was in the cards themselves. I've always thought the magic was, is with the querent and the reader. So does it need to change? Are the archetypes set in stone? I'm going to hold up my hands and be honest and say that I don't know enough about archetypes to really make too much comment on that. What I would say though is, and Robin from Toadstool Tarot has made this point, and I think it's a really good point. Robin's made the point because Robin's made a couple of majors only decks, and he's made the point that he doesn't really think that there's anything that a majors only can't read for. Anything that that you can read for with any other deck of cards, the majors only can read for. And in my experience, I've not used majors only all that much, but in my experience, that has pretty much been the case. Do we need to layer in more archetypes and stuff? I don't think we need to. Would I stop someone from doing that? Absolutely not, because like Susan's just said, that's someone's experience of the world. That's someone's artistic experience.
Yeah.
From John's point of view, obviously, we've kind of got over this pandemic, and John's point of view is that the world has shifted in this kind of a big way, where certainly his point of view of making the deck is that he feels that it needed to be changed up. I mean, the world's gone through many a change. There's been several wars, a few world wars. There's been lots of big scale world events. Do I think that this thing that we have been through has made it need to change? I'm not sure if it needs to. But again, like that, that is someone's experience, and that's always going to be valid. And I tell you this, there will always be a group of people who will get something from that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That leads me nicely. Sorry, I feel as though I'm just rattling through.
Just before you go to the next question,
Yeah.
just on that, in terms of what you're talking about archetypes, and just to play devil's advocate, if we had a majors only deck, and this is a majors only deck, it's just that there's 60 cards in the deck. Without the minors, do we feel, so you're saying that there is enough with that that major arcana in terms of the representation of archetypes? Anna mentioned, the word fear is in there. Shadow, that we talk about a lot of the time. Are these represented in the major arcana? The archetype of the worker. Yeah. You say, oh, you're such a worker. For me, that's in the minors. And this to me is like, it's like a deck of majors and minors, only he's took the archetypal nature of one of the minor cards, like the worker, and put it in, that could represent a few cards within the minors, couldn't it? So do you so what he's done there is saying, look, these are archetypes I've added in for a modern world. So I guess the question where I was saying I was playing devil's advocate is, do we have enough in the 22 for this world that we now inhabit?
I think we do. I think that you could get each of those meanings from the 22. I think it's probably we could start a whole nother discussion on which of those are those, what cards it would be. But for me, the things that spring to mind for fear, for example, the devil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's, death as well, because lots of people fear death. But we can have a discussion about which card links with what. There was something else I really wanted to say. But it more speaks to when is it a tarot and when is it not a tarot.
Yeah.
So and you can, so I was I'll put my hands up, folks, and I'll say, like, I was one of those arseholes that messaged Simon and said this to me is more an oracle than it is a tarot. And I think I said to you, I'm going to be one of those people, by the way, and put one of those comments on.
But I love that. I love that. And that's, when I was doing this walkthrough, I knew that this deck would divide opinions. And I said, please share your comments for and against, because I'm in two minds. I'm not, I love this, and I've done some amazing readings with this, but I'll never, ever not have traditional tarot. It's not replacing. And I don't think that was the creator's intention, was to replace the tarot. It was another system for a modern world. But the fact that we've got 60 triumphs is what intrigues me, and no courts.
Yeah.
So did you have a thought about the question about courts, or whether the court cards are still needed in the world that we live in?
I personally think they are. Like, maybe there's a question as to, I don't think they need to be page, knight, queen, and king. I still think there's people that get a lot from that, and to be honest, I'm not massive on, like, the whole. We've talked about this quite recently. I think, like, when someone changes up the courts to be something that you're you've got to do this translation thing in your head. Do you know what I mean? I'm not. I would prefer, like, as much as it's great to be, for whatever reason that someone's done it, whether it's for inclusivity or whatever, or just to bring it and put a modern touch on it. As much as it's brilliant to do that, I just that translation thing. Sorry, I'm answering a different question that you didn't even ask. Yes, I think, for me anyway, I think the courts do need to be in there. I the for many different reasons. Like, I use the courts, like, quite often the courts will come up in a tarot spread and they will be indicating particular people.
Yeah.
Or quite often the courts
Almost
will come
like
up and they'll be indicating. Sorry.
Almost like significator cards, aren't they? In that sense.
Yeah, they can be. And I think if you took the courts out, how are you going to get that particular property of the courts back? I'm not sure whether just the majors and the ace through tens could do the job quite as well. But they also represent, like, how people use the energies of the tarot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think it's a bit different from, like, a page is different from an ace. And I've talked recently about the difference. Like, the ace is the pure potentiality, it's the potential energy. Whereas in the page you see I'm just talking about the Rider-Waite-Smith here, but in the page you see someone taking up that energy and doing something with it. So it's like it's been brought to life by, into, someone's doing something with that. I'm not making much sense here.
Yeah, you
But
are.
yeah, I think this was, so when is it a tarot and when is it not a tarot? So, and you said to me, like, okay, so I said, in my mind it's more an oracle, just because a tarot is a particular system, and you says, like, quite rightly, you said, right, okay, well, what if we've got a majors only deck? Is that not a tarot? I think a majors only tarot is a majors only tarot. Do you know what I mean? So I would still say there's still got the word tarot in there, but it's a majors only tarot. It's not a full tarot deck.
I think the reason why I was kind of illustrating that is because the comments and feedback from people tended to be that if you change the 22 and the 56 and the courts, then it's not a tarot, it's an oracle. And then I was like, well, hold on a minute. What about majors only decks? Because they are tarot decks. And like you said, you think there's enough in those 22 cards. and they don't bring in, you know, court cards, and they don't have pips or illustrated minors, you know. So that was why, because people was just hung up on the structure of 22 majors, 56 minors, which include courts.
Yeah, I do think there's a difference between a majors only tarot and a tarot. I'll say that, but like, again, like I said at the start, all of this is just my opinion, and I'm open to changing my mind if someone can, you know, if someone convinces me. Then there's something else I'd written down. It was based on something that Anna was saying, and I was kind of chatting about it in the chat as well. I think that so yeah, and this kind of touches on what you were when you were bringing up cards like fear and shadow. To me, they are not necessarily different archetypes; they're just different representations of the devil archetype. In my opinion, that would be the archetype they would fit. And it's the same when Anna was talking about like different representations of the lovers. That to me is what that is. It's a different representation of the same archetype. So I don't necessarily think you've brought anything new in there. You've just kind of changed up how that archetype is represented. So yeah, that was the only other thing that I had to say.
Yeah, and a card like Wisdom, we know in the major arcana where that could apply. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think what he was trying to do was also talk about the stages in between. I'm trying to find, here we go. So we all know the Tower card and what the Tower represents, but the actual Tower card is that Tower moment. But what comes after the Tower is the Fall. So we'll see in the traditional tarot, we'll see a Tower card and the person falling or people falling from it. But what he's talking about in the book is you've got your Tower moment, you know, where external forces leave an impact, and from that, the downfall of it. So he's kind of stretching out the major arcana, if you like, as well. But I do see lots of minor arcana influences in it.
Yeah, I would question whether he's added archetypes there. I don't know if that's what he claims to have done. I don't know if he claims that there are 60 card deck. I don't know if he's saying there are 60 archetypes in this deck.
He talks generally about archetypes in the book and whether archetypes are, you know, of a certain time, and do we need to have new archetypes? I probably should have put some little tags in this book, but
yeah,
brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for
having me.
That's all right. We've got 2 more people in the wings, and then we'll wrap it up because we'll be coming up to the 90-minute point. But yeah, thank you for your insights. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. See you later, everyone.
See you later. And we have Robin. Thank you for being patient. I know you've been there quite a while. So,
well, I made a few notes. I thought it was interesting what Anna said in terms of the naming of the things, and Chris too, about majors only decks being specifically majors only tarot. I think more from a marketing point of view, but also a discussion, communication point of view, it needs to have a kind of a set label. If you know, if it's just one person in a deck, it doesn't matter. But if you're communicating with other people or you're trying to sell the product to public, they kind of need to know what they're getting, what the category is. I was interested by your original question about the evolution in tarot, and does it need to evolve? If it needs to evolve, what do we feel like it's missing, or are there duplicates there that we feel are redundancies that we can remove? And I, most of all, would love if anybody can supply me with an answer. Is there any question in the world of human experience that you can ask me that's not in the tarot somewhere? It's not covered. If there's something missing, then maybe we need, you know, another archetype. But if it's covered, do we need it? And I personally, I've been, you know, raising the banner for majors only decks. I feel like they really can cover everything. But there's also this notion you mentioned about the Fool's Journey, which we have in the 22 major cards. We also have it in the full deck. And we also have a kind of a Fool's Journey in the 4 court cards. That's like a Fool's Journey of 4, you know. Then we've got the Fool's Journey of 22. Then we've got the Fool's Journey of 78, you know, and it's just like more and more kind of encapsulated or redefined. And there's some argument about the hierarchies involved in the court cards, and do we need them? And I'm arguably, maybe we could remove the court cards, because if we take the court cards out, I'm thinking, all right, what replaces them in the tarot? Well, the page is the youngster. That's the fool for me. The queen, there's the empress. The king, there's the emperor. The knight is the hardest one. And the knight almost feels to me, I always think of the knight as the action card. So for me, the knight is the whole rest of the deck, because every single card in there is taking some kind of action. And the actions are more specific depending on what they are. But you kind of don't really need that antiquated court system anymore, I don't think, if you look at it that way. And that solves the whole issue about, oh, government doesn't always work that way. And but I also often think of the court cards as structures of our government, you know, like king, queen, president, local government, state, city, that kind of thing. And also family structure. You've got child, teenager, warrior, young person energy, and then you've got adulthood, and the adulthood is divided between the queen and the king in terms of leaning more towards feminine versus more masculine. So
and I think that's what Anna was saying as well, wasn't it, about kind of the stages of life, you know, in terms of adolescence. And I mean, I think one thing that we all agree is that the tarot needs to evolve for the world in which we live today. But that happens naturally with more inclusive decks, you know. So we do see decks that come out that will include more people of color or the LGBTQ plus community, and you know, so we're seeing an evolution anyway, but still within the parameters of the structure that we know tarot to be. The difference with this deck is, and you know, he is clear on all his packaging that this is going to be a new journey for the Fool. So you know, it's in terms of answering that question about, you know, if you're going to do this, we have to be clear. And nowhere, just to reiterate as well, nowhere does he say this is to replace, this is the new way we should now look at tarot. It's just saying, actually, here's a deck, another evolution, because I think it was Susan who said the tarot always changes. You know, it's always reflecting its time, the time period. It's always bringing in lots of different, you know, esoterical, whatever you want it to be, you know. We've just seen recently, haven't we, in the last 5 or so years, the elemental table being applied, and we've got the Hebrew alphabet, and we've got astrology and Kabbalah tree. There's lots of growth and development with it. When you asked the question, Robin, about is there something that's not within the 22, I was just flicking through the cards, and I'm not saying this isn't, because people say, well, it's kind of the world card, but the traditional tarot stops with the world, you know, that's the completion and the starting again. Whereas he's added after the world, eternity, the everything. So beyond the world, because whenever we see the world card, you know, and it's often referred to as the universe in some other decks and systems. But do you feel that eternity is part of? I mean, we see the symbol, don't we, throughout the Arcana a few times. So is that something that is lacking?
Well, I see that we've increased representation through different decks. Obviously, that evolves and changes. So you get your pick from different decks in terms of how a card's represented, but also our glossary, not the tarot hasn't changed, our glossary of the tarot has changed. So our interpretations of each cards have evolved and expanded. Where they might have meant, more one thing, we've incorporated new ideas into the individual archetypes, I think. And in terms of what you just asked, I think maybe within the 22, it's not a single card thing. It's a spread where it's a combination of cards that defines it or refines it further. So yeah, the world doesn't do eternity, but maybe the world combined with the judgment card, or also the Fool card, anything where there's a going beyond or an evolution. But I think it has to do with the dialogue within a spread, a 3-card spread or something, more than having the whole thing encapsulated in one card.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything else you want to add, Robin?
I think that covers it, and thank you for letting me join in.
Oh no, you're welcome. Thank you for coming along. It's been nice to chat to you. I'll catch up with you soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Robin. Okay, let's bring. Took myself out there. I don't know why that happened. All right, talk to you soon. Let's bring in our final guest. We have Jackie. Hello, how are you?
This is fun. Thanks, Simon. It's been really interesting.
No, thank you. It has. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I've done a discussion like this, but just prompted from this deck coming into my collection and reading the book, and I thought I'd love to get lots of people's views and takes. So what's your thoughts, Jackie?
Well, personally, like you, I'm an RWS girl all the way. I have no interest in Lenormand or Marseille or Thoth or anything else, right? I'm all about the tarot. I do have Oracle decks, but I don't use them anywhere near as much as tarot. I'm just obsessed with the RWS. And this is my opinion, obviously. From the sense of tarot evolving, like I think it's evolving all the time anyway, in the sense that, like everyone else has said, there's new decks coming out with different religions, nationalities, cultures, themes, which all automatically give added meanings to, and different layers and stuff to the original meanings of the cards anyway, like I just recently got the Queen Alice tarot, and I'm seeing things and it's all based on RWS, but I'm seeing things that I'd never seen in the cards before, like with any other themed deck I've gotten before. I would say no to the adding. Well, sorry, like for me, I wouldn't be interested in adding different archetypes. Like for me, tarot is 78 cards. Like I remember seeing, now I can't remember the name of the decks, but I know John Holland has a deck that he called a tarot deck, but it's something like 69 cards or something.
That's the one that I was trying to remember the name of earlier, and then he brought out.
It has the word heart in the name, doesn't it?
Yes, and then he brought out. It was in a blue box, and he brought out a green box one with a love heart, and it was a love aspect. Can't remember what it is. Somebody in the chat might.
I know it has heart in the name, but I can't think of it. And I know Sandra Ann Taylor has, isn't it the Akashic Tarot it's called?
Yes.
And again, it's only like 63 cards or something. Them to me are not tarot because they do not have all the cards. I mean, for me, the tarot system is the 78 cards. It's the 22 majors and the 40 pips and the 16 court cards. I would not want to get rid of the court cards. I think they add a lot to it. It's only recently I've actually come to love the court cards. For so long I couldn't make head nor tail of them, but now I understand that they are kind of 4 stages of life, in that childlike energy, kind of an adult energy moving out of the home and learning and working and all the rest of it. And then the adult energy, I don't see any of them as either male or female. They can be anyone, obviously, you know, that kind of thing. But I do think they have to be there, you know. But like, I completely understand that there are decks like your one now with the 60 cards that are kind of seen as a majors only, which is fine. I mean, it wouldn't be for me at all, but obviously some people will love them, and that's grand. I have no problem with them. But just for me, tarot is the 78 cards. But I just feel it is evolving anyway, like I said, through all the different themes and everything that are coming out, and adding different meanings and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah. So I guess what you're saying then, Jackie, is it's fine for the tarot to evolve and bring in aspects of more of a modern world that we live in, as long as it stays within the structure.
Yeah. I do like my 78 cards. Like, I couldn't buy a deck that's less than 78 cards, you know, because that's just, to me, is not tarot.
Yeah. So in terms of the last prompt, would you then say, having said that any deck that doesn't conform to the traditional structure that you talked about makes it an oracle and shouldn't be referenced as a tarot, perhaps?
Yeah, I think so, because like I said, now with that John Holland deck and the Sandra Ann Taylor, like, they're not 78 cards. So in my mind, they're just not tarot, because I mean, I've only been learning 6 years, but like, I learned from day one that the RWS is kind of the original, you know. Obviously, I know it was originally a playing card deck and all the rest of it, and it evolved into a tool for divination, like, but that was that's the original as far as I'm concerned, and it's the 78 cards. So if it's less, I would more or less consider it an oracle deck. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But that's
Okay.
fine for anyone else who has no problem with that being a tarot deck. That's grand. But for me, no. Do you know?
Yeah, and that's the beauty, isn't it? That's the beauty of tarot, is that there is something for everybody. When I bought Divine Masculine, you know, there were people that saying, well, you know, that's not for me. I like to have balance. I showed the Adventure Tarot, I think it was called, the other day, you know, and I was a little bit irked because I was left out of it, you know.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I just think that sometimes, you know, that it's brilliant that there are not only different traditions of your Marseille, your RWS, your Toth, but also within those, there's also that that diverse sort of different representations covering
Yeah.
different, for all people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it, isn't it? And we take what resonates with us and
Exactly. Yeah.
what doesn't.
Yeah. True. I mean, I've bought plenty decks over the years that I just, you know, all this FOMO business. I thought I wanted them because you were showing them and everyone else was showing them, and I bought them, and I just didn't resonate with them for whatever reason, and I sold them on or gifted them on or whatever. But I keep the ones that I really resonate with and that speak to me, you know, and that kind of thing.
And then when we move them on, you know, it's to somebody else who will enjoy and appreciate them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Smashing. Anything else you wanted to add, Jackie?
I don't think so. I was making notes now while other people were talking, so I wouldn't forget anything. But I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you for your
No
time.
problem. Thanks for having me.
No worries. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Wow, that was a great discussion. I really enjoyed it. And just hearing different people's point of views. Yeah, it was wonderful. So I want to thank everybody who's joined me and offered their insights as well, but also in the comments. And I know, because the comments have moved so fast, I probably missed so many comments, but as long as you guys have enjoyed it as well, then that's that makes it all worthwhile. So thank you to everybody for your kind comments. Right, so I just wanted to say as well that because this deck is what's kind of prompted tonight's discussion, It's proved popular. Cheryl completely sold out after our live last Saturday, and then the walkthrough that I did this week. But she's ordering more. So if you did want to buy it and you want to buy it from Honest Emporium, then if you put in Hermit's 10, there's a further 10% off. So just so that I was going to see if I've got it. Yeah, here we go. So for 10% discount code, Hermit's 10, when you get to the checkout, it's 10% off. So you can pre-order the next batch coming in. I need to do a card pull because it kickstarts the card of the week in chat. I'm not going to pull it from this because if I was to pull a card like the Sorrowful, then I'd have to kind of then look at where that would be in the tarot. But so I'm going to pull from a traditional deck. What shall we use? We'll go with Terra Volatile. Not used this for a few weeks. So what do we need to focus on for the week ahead? I can hear that washing machine now. I do apologize, but oh, I've just dropped them. What am I like? Okay, let's put these the right way around. Give them a little bit of a shuffle. I'm not going to pull the 8 cards that went flying everywhere. Oh no. Okay, so something to focus on for the week ahead for everybody. What do we need to? I've just split the deck, and this one was upturned the wrong way anyway, and it's right on top. It's the Death card. Fabulous card. But wow, the Death card. Get ready for change, people. Get ready for change, people. No, in all seriousness, it's time for us to let go of the past. Whenever the Death card comes up for me, it's about taking that step forward, no matter how daunting it might be, no matter how much trepidation we feel. Change is the one constant in life, and it's about how we prepare ourselves for it. And it comes with a level of acceptance, really. Some things are inevitable, like, as I was saying, like change, it's inevitable. But if we don't accept it, we then start to force against it. And that's where we get that disharmony, because, change it's always happening, and it's about how we go with that change and how we go with the flow. So the acceptance is about accepting the cycles of change and being fearless when it comes to letting go, because we do have attachments, don't we? All of us have things that we're attached to, and when they're threatened, that's when we go into that sort of state of fear. So don't fear the Death card. It's about the ending of something and the beginning of something new, but also an acceptance of the cyclical nature of life and how we can put ourselves in rhythm with that cyclical nature of life. All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. And thank you again to all of the guests who came on tonight. And thank you for all of your comments. So funny that this card came up. What an appropriate card for the discussion, right? Oh, that's the tarot. It's got a sense of humor as well. So yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. I'll be back in the week, and until then, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.